All right, everyone, we have a whole nexus of crime with regards to the Biden crime syndicate. It's more and more expansive. Over time, we've gone from it's a Russian disinfo campaign to, yeah, it's real, but, ignore it with regards to the Hunter laptop. But now we have testimony from half a dozen different whistleblowers and former Hunter Biden associates and former prosecutors in Ukraine and everything else under the sun. It really doesn't take much to connect the dots. Only a politician could possibly screw it up. Which dot goes next? I don't know. Maybe it's over here. Maybe it's up there. And then in the end, it's just a giant scribble. That's what the Republicans are doing in the House right now, predictably, by the way. They're starting impeachment proceedings against, impeachment hearings against Joe Biden right now, slow-walking it the entire way and saying, we hereby sign this paper declaring that we express interest in expressing interest into possibly looking into aspects of corruption possibly commensurate with impeachment with regards to Joe Biden. Yeah, that strongly worded letter is very strongly worded. I'm sure that Joe Biden is shaking in his boots. Dude, if I were leading the House right now, I would just call it to a fucking floor vote and tell everyone else in the party, stay in goddamn line or we're going to deny you all funding for re-election. Because we've got to, at some point, we've got to stand for something. Our opponents really aren't held back by the same moral quandaries that we seem to be, or fiscal quandaries in some cases, I'm sure you know. We've got a twofer here, actually. I'm going to read a little bit of this verbatim. Former Ukraine prosecutor makes explosive claims against Joe and Hunter Biden in new interview. The White House, of course, says Shokin is not credible and was fired for being too soft on corruption. Viktor Shokin was a prosecutor in Ukraine. You probably know the story, but I'll iterate it for the few of you that don't. And he was looking into Burisma, which was the energy company on which Hunter Biden was inexplicably hired for an advisory position, despite having literally no finesse within the energy industry. What we now know is that he was getting daddy on telephone calls with the executives there in order to peddle what they call the illusion of accessibility. Now, that sounds an awful lot like it was favor peddling, and that Joe Biden didn't just hop on these calls to talk about the weather, and that he did understand, he clearly lied about not having anything to do with his son's business dealings if he did this on several dozen occasions, and we now know that indeed he did. Viktor Shokin was looking into Burisma, trying to figure out if there was some funny business going on, because basically the Bidens were using it through a middleman shell company as a money sponge. And he was fired. And Viktor Shokin is saying, well, yeah, the Bidens were effectively bribed. Yeah, they got lots of money, and that's the reason why Hunter was there, and that was the whole point. It kind of makes sense, because a reasonable person looking at the situation would expect the same thing. I would point out that only the cognitive dissonance of some of the U.S. population prevents this from being a truly explosive scandal, because we've become so hyper-politicized. There are people that think that any criticism of Joe at all is Russian disinformation. So Shokin is coming out and just saying it at this point. Yeah, they were bribed. I allege officially they were bribed. What's the White House response? Don't listen to him. He's not a reliable source of information. He was being soft on crime. Well, yeah, he's a Ukrainian prosecutor. So notoriously corrupt nation. I could look at any prosecutor or lawyer in the goddamn nation of Ukraine and find some reason why they should be kicked out of the legal practice. That's a guarantee. The nation is rife with corruption. By the way, you're talking about the corrupt Ukrainian prosecutor, but now you're pretending that Ukraine's shit don't stink and you're saying give them another $10 billion in weapons sales. They need more F-16s or another Abrams or something like that. Very interesting. Quite intriguing how that 180 happened. Yeah, Ukraine's corrupt. No shit. I'm sure Shokin occasionally took a fall. I'm sure that he occasionally bullied somebody. Of course he did. You decided to nitpick on him because he was looking into the energy firm that Hunter was on. Then, we have more news. And this is exactly dovetailed with Shokin's claims, by the way. Burisma's Devon met with then Secretary of State Kerry just weeks before Shokin was fired. Wouldn't it be funny to be a fly on the wall with that conversation? Hunter's former business partner and fellow Burisma board member Devon met with then Secretary of State John Kerry just weeks before the Ukrainian prosecutor who was investigating Burisma was fired in 2016. Former Ukrainian prosecutor General Viktor Shokin was fired on March 29th, less than 4 weeks after Archer met with Kerry at the State Department in Washington, D.C., according to a State Department email. Devon Archer coming to see S today, that's Kerry, S for Secretary of State, I'm assuming, at 3 p.m. Need someone to meet and greet, eat him at C Street, reads the redacted email on March 2nd, 2016, which was previously released via the Freedom of Information Act. So, yeah, that's rather interesting. But again, the coincidences keep stacking up lately. It's a coincidence that Shokin decided that Trump's first trial date should be the day before Super Tuesday. It's a coincidence, this particular communique and the timing of the firing of Viktor Shokin. Everything's a coincidence. In fact, literally nothing is on purpose anymore. Literally everything is nothing more than a random roll of the die. Just assume coincidence. It's your imagination, you conspiracy theorist. Yeah, the entire machinations of the entire corporate body complex with the political system, the legacy media, technology, the medical infrastructure, Hong Kong, and many other things, all coming together for one solidified political purpose is it's just a coincidence. They're all working together accidentally. There's absolutely no collusion between any government agencies and any corporations. It's a coincidence that Twitter was banning people after being encouraged to look into their posts by the FBI. It was a coincidence that censorship on Meta picked up so heavily during that election right after the FBI approached Mark Zuckerberg in 2020. All of these things, so many coincidences. Wow. I have to start believing in determinism, I suppose. Everything is just completely random. Everything is predetermined, but it's just part of a massively complex machine that makes absolutely no sense to anyone witnessing it from within. It's nuts. To be clear, I'm being glib. This is not the timing was not coincidence. Neither is it in the case of Shokin and the Trump trial day. It was on purpose. The fact that Devon Archer met with John Kerry beforehand is linked to the fact that Shokin was fired, because otherwise he would have looked into Burisma and he would have gotten what he wanted and he would have cracked the Biden family like a goddamn walnut. That's why they did that. It's political nepotism. Joe Biden was the VP at the time, peddling influence and getting his son millions of dollars. Probably in part because he feels sorry for his loser crack addict son and figured he can't do it on his own. The boy doesn't know what the fuck he's doing. He's spending all the money on whoring anyway. I gotta help him out. I'll get on these phone calls. I'll make sure that the business deals go through. And I'll make sure that nutcase Shokin is fired. Hey, it's Ukraine. He's gotta be corrupt in some cases. And Joe Biden's not entirely wrong. Of course Viktor Shokin occasionally took a dive for a few bottles of vodka. It's Ukraine. That's the way the legal system in that part of the world fucking works. It has forever and it always shall be. If you go to the border crossing, you may have to bribe someone. If you have a business dispute, you may need to blackmail someone. It's not the same as Western Europe or most of the United States. It's not the same politics. It's not the same way that business is conducted. This is why Trump succeeded where Biden failed. Biden may be able to do well in Eastern Europe. He knows nothing about Asian business making. Trump does. That's just the long and short of it. It's just the way that it works. Yeah, Viktor Shokin, soft on certain crimes, selectively, of course. But he decided to be tough on the one company that Hunter Biden was working for, and that was the whole problem, the reason why he was let go of, and the government was used to broker that deal. John Kerry almost certainly called up the Ukrainian authorities himself personally. It may not have even been Joe. They probably did go through John Kerry. It wouldn't surprise me in the least. That's about all. Peace out.